Welcome back to The Explainer. So, if you thought the geopolitical map of the Middle East was pretty much locked in place, well, you might want to look again. Today, we're unpacking a massive, rapidly unfolding shift. We've got new intelligence and reports detailing a sudden multi-theater military and diplomatic expansion by Egypt, and honestly, it's fascinating. And look, this matters immensely to all of us. A strategic shift in this specific region doesn't just redraw lines on a map, it directly impacts global trade routes, international energy prices, and the supply chains that essentially dictate everyday inflation. We're talking about everything from brand new military bases right on the Iranian border all the way to fifth-generation weapon manufacturing. Let's dive in.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 5 distinct theaters: the Gulf Security Umbrella, countering economic engineering, defense manufacturing alliances, securing the Red Sea, and finally, Oman's strategic mediation. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the Gulf Security Umbrella and how Egypt is actively projecting defensive power.
Now, you might be wondering, why is the Egyptian military suddenly expanding its footprint all across the Gulf right now? I mean, Egypt has always had a historical role in protecting the Arabian Peninsula. It's deeply tied to their own national security. But according to the reports, this current push is a direct, immediate response to a dangerous vacuum in regional security, and a real perceived escalation in threats that could completely destabilize the entire Arabian Peninsula.
To really grasp the scale of this, just look at the specific hardware being moved to allied Gulf nations. We're seeing Egyptian Rafale fighter jets actively stationed in United Arab Emirates hangars, which is a direct preparation against emerging economic threats. Over in Saudi Arabia, they've deployed Eastern-made surface-to-air defense systems, including advanced interceptors, complete with Egyptian operators. Alongside all of that, Egyptian naval and special forces are actively running patrols to protect Saudi islands in the Red Sea. And it doesn't stop there. Similar early warning defensive systems and air presence have now been established in Kuwait and Bahrain. But the reports do stress one crucial detail. This posture is strictly defensive. It's designed to act as a serious deterrent.
Which brings us right to Section 2, countering economic engineering, and specifically the immediate threat facing the UAE.
You know, we usually think of conflicts as traditional military assaults, but the sources highlight a much more complex tactic being utilized by Iran right now. It's referred to as economic engineering. This is a strategy that specifically targets a nation's foundational economic infrastructure. Think ports, vital trade routes, things like that. The whole goal is to disrupt a country's economic development and stability, basically applying massive pressure even when there's an international truce. And this tactic matters globally, because if you disrupt foundational infrastructure in the Middle East, the ripple effects hit global supply chains and consumer prices literally everywhere. This brilliantly illustrates why recent attacks on the UAE ports of Fujairah and Khor Fakkan were highly calculated. Think about the geography here. Because these two ports sit safely outside the highly vulnerable Strait of Hormuz, directly on the Gulf of Oman, they serve as a strategic bypass. They essentially act as the economic lungs for the UAE whenever the strait is compromised by maritime blockades. So, by specifically targeting these bypass ports, this economic engineering strategy is attempting to choke off the UAE's ability to sustain global trade. It's an existential threat, and that is exactly what triggered this rapid Egyptian military reinforcement.
Moving right along to Section 3, Defense Manufacturing Alliances and how they are building the supply chain. Now, to sustain a regional security umbrella of this magnitude, Egypt obviously requires an immense logistical backbone. They can't just rely on imports anymore. So they are actively building an unprecedented intercontinental manufacturing network to make sure their military edge stays sharp. We're talking massive strategic partnerships with China, South Korea, and Pakistan. It isn't just about buying weapons off the shelf, it's about co-producing them and totally integrating global supply chains.
Let's start with number 1, Pakistan. In South Asia, Egypt has just established its very first military base in Pakistan, and it is positioned strategically right on the Iranian border. The sources point out that this base facilitates high-level joint special forces training, critical intelligence sharing, and even shared production facilities. This grants Egypt some serious strategic leverage and a forward operating awareness in the region that they simply didn't have before.
Meanwhile, shifting over to East Asia, Egypt has officially launched its first massive defense complex in South Korea. The sources really emphasize the sheer massive scale of this partnership. It's specifically designed to co-produce K-9 Thunder self-propelled artillery and advanced Fa-50 light combat aircraft.
This is a huge deal because it officially elevates Egypt's status on the world stage from just being a consumer of arms to being a global arms co-producer.
Back on Egyptian soil, the alliance with China is absolutely transformative. But what exactly is being built? Well, the sources detail that advanced stealth unmanned aerial vehicles and fifth-generation fighter technology transfers are being integrated directly within major Egyptian military bases. We're talking about places like the Sinai and the massive Berenice base. China is basically establishing a highly secure hub for its advanced weaponry right there in Egypt. And on top of that, the inclusion of Chinese quantum technology applications means Egypt's military communication and encryption capabilities are taking a massive leap forward.
Let's pivot south for Section 4, Securing the Red Sea, focusing on operations in Sudan and Somalia.
Egypt is actually deploying a very structured, three-step approach to stabilize the incredibly volatile Red Sea corridor. First, in a genuinely fascinating move, they are hosting global shipping executives, which the intelligence intriguingly refers to as the Council of Bears. They're offering them specific maritime incentives, like heavily reduced transit tolls and coordinated security escorts, just to bring them back to the Suez Canal. Second, they're heavily utilizing that Berenice military base we just mentioned to project regional security. And third, the Egyptian Blue Water Navy is extending their deep water patrols all the way down to the Somali border to actively sweep and secure those waters.
On land, their strategy is laser-focused on containment and stabilization. The Egyptian Chief of Staff has been personally inspecting the southern border near Sudan, ensuring the absolute protection of vital infrastructure, like the Aswan High Dam. Concurrently, the sources report that unidentified airstrikes have dealt some really heavy blows to the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, in Sudan. It's a move that has effectively halted hostile advances there. Further south, successive waves of Egyptian and Turkish military shipments have arrived in Somalia. These shipments are specifically aimed at completely rebuilding the Somali National Army to counter terrorism, specifically al-Shabaab, and neutralize broader regional threats.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Oman's strategic mediation, which essentially serves as the diplomatic shield.
Because, as we know, military might is really only half the equation here. Operating right alongside these massive defense expansions is a really crucial diplomatic strategy. According to the reports, Oman serves as the message box and direct negotiator between the Gulf and Iran. Oman plays this vital, historic role as the completely neutral ground where all these regional powers attempt to de-escalate tensions before things spiral out of control.
And we can actually trace this diplomatic timeline back decades. Back in 1979, Sultan Qaboos officially established Oman's policy of neutral mediation. Jumping to the present day, Egyptian President Sisi has visited Sultan Haitham in Oman specifically to align their strategic approaches. Right now, on an ongoing basis, Oman is hosting direct, very quiet communications to prevent a zero-sum war between the UAE and Iran. This mediation is absolutely vital because an all-out conflict here would be catastrophic, not just for the region, but for the global economy. It truly acts as the diplomatic shield to Egypt's military sword.
So, what does this all mean for us? We are watching the complete rewiring of regional alliances in real time. With this unprecedented alignment of global manufacturing capabilities, from Chinese quantum tech to South Korean artillery, combined with boots on the ground spanning from the Iranian border all the way down to the Red Sea, this is clearly so much more than standard posturing. The question isn't just how this permanent shift will reshape the Middle East balance of power, it's how long until the rest of the globe feels the shockwaves. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will catch you next time as we continue to decode the world's most complex shifts.